Hi, everybody. I'm Kurt Gowdy of NBC Sports to call the play-by-play. My television partner, Tony Kubek, will be analyzing the game, and roaming the stands will be our man, Lindsey Nelson. And here in the home ballpark of the American League Tiger Stadium, it is hot and it is very windy. The wind is going to be a big factor in tonight's game. It's blowing from home plate to right field at 30 miles an hour. And you know, the American League is trying to stop an embarrassing 8-game losing streak.
Welcome to The Story Behind the Story, where we revisit the stories of ordinary lives touched by extraordinary moments in history. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and today's story takes us back to the summer of 1971, July 13th to be exact. A date that, for baseball fans, marks the opening pitch of what many still consider the greatest All-Star game ever played. But for our family, it's remembered for something even more unforgettable: the birth of a son, our brother, Kyle Patrick Smith.
The games have been close. 5 of the 8 losses by the American League have been by 1 run. But Tony Kubek, the American League has just not been able to get over the edge.
Kurt, the games have been close, and when you look at this ballpark, the Hitter's Ballpark, and you look at that power-laden National League lineup, you could almost see their eyes light up as
it was a humid Tuesday. The air was thick and anticipation was everywhere, from Tiger Stadium in Detroit to the maternity ward where my mother labored through the final hours of her pregnancy. Baseball legends were gathering on the field: Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Reggie Jackson. Our brother Kyle Patrick Smith being born was supposed to be just a normal, regular day. But it turned out it wasn't easy. It was traumatic. It was the kind of birth that doctors still talk about years later. He was having issues. He was stuck. Shoulder dystocia is what they call it. A rare and dangerous complication. Sometimes a baby is unable to descend through the birth canal during labor. This can be caused by several factors. In layman's terms, it's a failure to progress. This can occur if the baby's head or body is too large to fit through the mother's pelvis, or if the baby is like a breech baby. For whatever reason, baby could not pass through the mother's pelvis, and a normal birth suddenly became an emergency situation. This halted his descent into the world, and suddenly time stretched thin. The doctor had to move fast, calling out maneuvers and trying out everything to safely deliver him. In the delivery room, those terrifying minutes, it felt like the world stopped for my mother. But outside, history was being written in another way.
Reggie Jackson, batting .272 for Oakland, 17 homers. He's bounced
Reggie
back
Jackson
this year,
had just stepped up to the plate to face pitcher Doc Ellis.
There's a long drive. That one is going way up. It is off the roof. That hit the transformer up there. A tremendous smash. Only 8 players have hit the ball over the roof here in Detroit. And Jackson nearly did it then out of the ballpark.
And with a thunderous swing, Reggie Jackson crushed a homer that slammed off a light tower. While Reggie sent baseballs into orbit inside the hospital, the doctors and nurses were performing their own kind of miracle. Kyle Patrick Smith, unable to descend down the birth canal, was now having respiratory issues and turning blue. The doctors and nurses knew they had to work fast. Unexpectedly, a normal delivery now was becoming a delivery by cesarean section. And then at last, Kyle arrived, bruised, a little blue, but alive, crying, breathing, fighting already from his very first second on Earth. July 13th, 1971, the day our brother Kyle was born, and the day the American League finally beat the National League after 8 long years in a game that fans still replay in their minds. The story behind the story. The night the stadium lights stayed bright in Detroit, Michigan for the 1971 All-Star Game, but so did the lights in our family's hospital room. Baseball had its MVPs, Jackson, Mays, Clemente, Aaron, but we had ours, a 6-pound fighter with a rough start and a strong heart. The story behind the story is where history meets the heart and the personal becomes unforgettable. Today we're heading back to July 13th, 1971, a day when 2 epic events collided. The start of the greatest All-Star game in Major League Baseball history and the chaotic, dramatic, unforgettable birthday of our brother, Kyle Patrick Smith. It was supposed to be a simple hospital birth at Wyandotte Hospital in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. A small-town maternity ward, 1 delivery room, 1 mother in labor, 1 soon-to-be father nervously pacing. But the story behind the story isn't just about a difficult labor. It's about unexpected visitors, family dynamics, and one of the most infamous delivery room invasions in our family's history. Our mother, Ellen Smith, was in the throes of a difficult labor. Shoulder dystocia, when the baby's shoulder gets stuck behind the mother's pelvic bone and fails to descend. This condition had complicated everything. The baby, Kyle, wasn't descending. The situation was urgent. The room was tense. And then our grandmother, Goldie, walked in. That's right, our paternal grandmother, Goldie Smith, strong-willed, warm-hearted, and completely unaware of hospital protocol, somehow slipped past the charge nurse. She wasn't alone either. Right beside her was Aunt Wanda, just as determined, just as uninvited, and just as curious to welcome Kyle into the world in person. Imagine, if you will, our dad, Lester Smith, momentarily distracted, Maybe by the fact that Willie Mays was stepping up to the plate in Detroit. Maybe by the sheer disbelief that his mother and sister had found their way into an active delivery room. Either way, it happened. While doctors and nurses were doing everything to deliver a baby in distress, Grandma and Wanda were standing there, eyes wide, emotions high, completely unaware that they just entered sacred territory. But for our mother, it wasn't just a breach of privacy. It was a betrayal. In a moment of fear, pain, and vulnerability, she expected only her husband at her side. Instead, she got a front row family reunion. She never forgot that. For years, just the mention of that delivery room would bring back flashes of anger. She was outraged, and rightly so. Yet time, like laughter, heals all wounds. What was once a moment of chaos is now family legend. We laugh about it now. We roll our eyes. And every July 13th, we remind Kyle that he didn't just arrive into the world with drama. He arrived with a crowd. Did that moment, that family ambush, somehow influence Kyle's dramatic entrance into the world? Did the tension in the room, the emotional crossfire, or our dad's divided attention affect the outcome? Who knows? But if you ask me, and I wasn't in the room, I'd say Kyle was just born into the energy that would define him. Big, bold, dramatic, and never alone. The All-Star game that night became an instant classic. Reggie Jackson launched a moonshot off a light tower. The American League broke its losing streak. But for our family, the true fireworks didn't come from the diamond. They came from a small maternity room in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, where chaos, comedy, and a miracle all happened at once.
Reggie Jackson, batting .272 for Oakland, 17 homers. He's bounced back this year, 41 runs batted in. A fine all-around player. Aparicio on first, nobody out. There's a long drive. That one is going way up. It is off the roof. That hit the transformer up there. A tremendous smash. Only 8 players have hit the ball over the roof there in Detroit.
A date burned into baseball lore and into my family's story. This was no ordinary summer Tuesday. It was the day of the greatest All-Star game ever played, and the night my younger brother Kyle Patrick Smith came into the world. Kicking, stuck, and stealing the spotlight from some of baseball's greatest legends. The story behind the story of our brother Kyle Patrick Smith being born July 13, 1971 was the American versus National League All-Star Game. The American League hadn't won in 8 years. The National League had been dominant. They were faster, flashier, deeper. But this night was different. With the wind blowing out of Tiger Stadium, the stage was set. Fans packed the stands. Willie Mays led off with a hit. Johnny Bench, Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, they were all there. On the other side, Frank Robinson, Harmon Killebrew, and a young firecracker named Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson, Batting .272 for Oakland. 17 homers. He's bounced back this year. 41 runs batted in. A fine all-around player. Aparicio on first, nobody out. There's a long drive. There one is going way up. It is.
And then came the moment. Reggie Jackson sent a Doc Ellis fastball hurtling toward the lights in right field. The ball crashed into the transformer tower 470 feet away. A home run so massive it looked mythic. Back in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, South 8th Street, 3 boys sat crowded around the family's color TV, eyes wide, mouths open. These boys, Kyle's older brothers. We were not in the hospital. We were home, waiting, anxious, excited, trying to decide what was more intense, this historic All-Star game or the fact our mom was in labor at Wyandotte Hospital just across town. But the brothers, I was 13, my brother Jeff, almost 12. Rick and Randy, almost 9, had no idea that there was difficulties at the labor and delivery room at Wyandotte Hospital. Our mom, Ellen Smith, was in pain. Labor was becoming dangerous. The doctors were fighting the clock. Our dad, Lester Smith, was right there beside her until suddenly he wasn't the only one. The story behind the story. In walked his mother, Goldie, and his sister, Wanda, somehow slipping past the charge nurse into the delivery room in the middle of an emergency birth. It's possible our dad was distracted by the game, which had just kicked off at 8 p.m. Maybe it was just Grandma being Grandma, warm-hearted, fiercely curious, and not great with boundaries. Either way, our mother never forgot it. For years, this wasn't a funny story. It was the story. A moment of chaos and embarrassment that lingered long after Kyle's dramatic entrance. And yet, with time, we found the humor in it. We laugh about it now. Because, of course, Kyle was born like that, in the middle of mayhem, with the All-Star Game exploding on TV. With 6 home runs in a game where the wind was blowing out, and with his 3 big brothers sitting home on South 8th Street, eyes switching between the TV and the phone, wondering, is he here yet? Kyle was born that night, bruised, breathless, but alive. A fighter who already made his mark before his first breath. The American League broke its losing streak that night. So did we. Kyle completed our family. And that's the story behind the story. July 13th, 1971, the night baseball witnessed greatness, and we welcomed our brother, already swinging for the fences. Kyle, you were born into Bedlam, but what an entrance. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. The echoes of the past are waiting to be heard. My name is Brian Smith, and we are history. Thank you for listening.